Hey 302, it's Jackie Ferris. This week we are fireside at Tilton Mansion talking about one of the most important historical figures in the Wilmington area. I'm speaking, of course, of James Tilton. Buckle up, history buffs. This one's for you. Hey 302, he was a Revolutionary War hero and the first Army Surgeon General. Of course, I'm talking about James Tilton. He's beloved by many people here in Delaware, and if you don't know the name, you're about to. I'm joined by Stacy English. She is the VP of Historical and Cultural Affairs here at Tilton Mansion. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Jackie.
Well, tell us a little bit about this great man that so many people just hold in such reverence.
Dr. Tilton, as you discussed, was a Revolutionary War hero, but he was also a soldier. So he would fight on the field with the soldiers and then tend to their wounds in the evening. And he oversaw all of the Revolutionary War hospitals under George Washington. And during the war, in the battles in New Jersey, the Battle of Trenton specifically, when Washington's army was dying of typhus, Dr. Tilton created and designed what is called the Tilton Hut. And what that did was to separate people. So let's say, Jackie, that unfortunately you were bayoneted, right? So you have an open wound. Mm-hmm. And then you went to the hospital and were put in a cot next to someone with typhus. Well, guess what happens to Jackie, right? So Dr. Tilton came up with a way to separate 3 sections in this hut of people with the different wounds, a little bit of a precursor to triage, perhaps. And in this hut, there were 3 very strategically located fireplaces that drew good air in and expelled bad air out. So many historians have given him credit for saving Washington's army from dying off at the Battle of Trenton. So without his efforts on how to stop typhus from killing the rest of the army, we would all be British.
So at the time, it was revolutionary, for lack of a better term.
Oh, absolutely. Sanitation was terrible. He was known decades after his death for the practices of sanitation that he put in. So when you were earlier bayoneted and then caught typhus and passed on, whomever came in after you, those bandages were not necessarily washed or sanitized. It just went right on the next person. So there were a lot of ways of sanitation in hospitals that we use today that Dr. Tilton actually came up with.
Now, whenever he completed his service, he became a member of the Continental Congress, is that right?
He did. So Delaware was the 3 lower counties of Pennsylvania. And then when we were actually severed and became Delaware, there was a dual citizenship between Pennsylvania and Delaware. So if you lived in Philadelphia and you wanted to be part of the Continental Congress representing Delaware, you could do that even as a Philadelphian. And there was a governor, Dickinson, governor, or then they called it president of Delaware, who quit to go be president or governor of Pennsylvania. And Dr. Tilton thought that was just crazy. So he had himself elected to be a delegate in the Continental Congress in 1783. And then he undid all of those laws that tethered our 2 states together. So you could no longer do that. So if you were going to be a Delawarean, you were strictly a Delawarean. And then that was just 1 term. But then Dr. Tilton had a lot to do. He was a very smart man. So he kept going back to the meetings at Congress, and they had to pass a law banning Dr. Tilton from coming to Congress because he kept showing up even after he did not work there anymore.
They were like, enough already,
yeah,
you did your time.
They literally had to pass a law stopping him from Congress. There's a newspaper article upstairs in part of our tour that says Delaware congressman banned. So
interesting. So when did he build Tilton Mansion?
The Tilton Mansion was built in 1802. He had purchased the property about a decade earlier from his friend, Bancroft Woodcock. Mr. Woodcock was a silversmith in Delaware, and he owned this property, which at the time was about 24 acres. Mr. Woodcock and Dr. Tilton were both Quakers, So they met at the Quaker Meeting House in downtown Wilmington. And that's how they became friends.
So when he passed, the house went through several hands, right?
Yes. Dr. Tilton never married. So the house was left for a brief period of time to a nephew. His brother Nehemiah had been the mayor of Wilmington in 1799, and his nephew took over when he passed here for a little, but didn't stay very long. And then Charles Howland and his family moved in, and that was in about 1850. He was here the longest. They were here till the early 1900s.
Okay, and then ultimately, the organizations that reside here now, there are several. One is the University and Whist Club.
The University and Whist Club came together. They were two separate things initially. The University Club was a group of professors who got together in the 1920s, and then the Whist Club was a group of card-playing people, sort of like a precursor to gin. And whist was very big. So the Wilmington Whist Club was an offshoot of Philadelphia at the time, and that was in the 1800s. So they lived in different buildings throughout the city of Wilmington based on their membership needs, and then they joined here together in 1958 as the University and Whist Club, and then they've been housed here ever since.
And we're going to talk more about them when we come back, so stay with us.
Hi, this is Jennifer French from the Grand Opera House, and the show goes on with the 302.
Welcome back. We were at Tilton Mansion talking about all of the history here. Now, Stacy, I understand the 6th Lieutenant Governor lived here as well, right?
Yes, this was his house. J. Danforth Bush and his family actually added the 3rd floor to the house. He and his son, J. Danforth Bush Jr., grew up here. And they were the ones who built the carriage house on the property. So that was built in 1902 after they moved in. So their needs were a little greater than Dr. Tilton's, who was a bachelor and didn't have family here. And the 6th Lieutenant Governor raised his children here. And then J. Danforth Bush Jr. grew up to be an engineer. He was instrumental in helping to design the Delaware Memorial Bridge. And he also was the director of the Historical Society of Delaware for several years.
And there is a DuPont connection to the mansion?
There is a DuPont connection. Back in 1935, there was an Italian businessman in the area, Agostino Fortunato, who was intending to buy up all of Broome Street, which is the street that we're on here, and to build townhouses. And Victor Francis DuPont caught wind of this and didn't want this property to be torn down. So he purchased it under the name of a company that he created to save it and rescue it from being torn down. And then he leased it to the University Club, and eventually they ended up purchasing it from him several years later. That was in 1935.
So when you come here, there's so much history under this roof.
It is. It's overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are tours that people can take.
There are tours in June during National History Week. We took that as an opportunity to share with people, since it was topical, the history, and then of course to show them our food. We are a private dining club here at the University and Whist Club. So we promoted tours. We thought one afternoon would be nice, and then that filled up so quickly that we had to add several days to that, and it became something people really enjoy doing. In fact, right before you arrived today, we had a group on a holiday history tour. So there were 25 people here from a neighborhood organization, and we do a 1-hour tour and a presentation, and then people are welcome to stay for lunch, and we have a Tilton menu created for them.
Now, for instance, on the holiday history tour, do we hear stories about holidays that were spent in the mansion, and then, a little bit of the history about the mansion itself, or?
We don't get into too much of the holidays. We haven't uncovered a lot of history. Dr. Tilton was, as a Quaker, he was also a very simple man. So he grew his own food. He made his own clothes, which is interesting. He did attend a Christmas Eve ball in Washington for George Washington. It was in honor of George when he was retiring. And Dr. Tilton thought he looked pretty spiffy in his outfit because everyone kept looking at him at this ball that was occurring. And then he found out later they were looking at him because he had made his own clothes, and they couldn't believe that he was wearing that. to George Washington's ball because George was so fancy. And in a letter that Dr. Tilton wrote about the ball, that is part of the Library of Congress, he elaborates on how all of the ladies couldn't wait to have George on their dance card for the evening. So
that's great. That's great. So when people come in and you tell them about this history, what are some of the things, a little bit of a preview of what they'll see when they go upstairs on the tours?
So on the tours, because Dr. Tilton didn't have family here, there aren't really things to see like if you were touring other mansions where you're looking at antiques. What you're really understanding is the breadth of his intelligence and all the things he did, from being in the first graduating class of the University of Pennsylvania to being the president of the Society of the Cincinnatis. And there's a beautiful brooch that General Lafayette gave to him as president of the Society of the Cincinnatis. We talk about how Dr. Tilton was a founder and first president of the Medical Society of Delaware, and the club has a long-standing relationship with the Medical Society as well. That was in 1789. We talk a little bit about his participation in the Continental Congress, and then we tell them Alexander Hamilton, when the Treasury Department was created, each of the 13 colonies had a commissioner of loans. So if you were the commissioner of loans for Pennsylvania, you would help to determine how the money was disseminated to help grow your state. And Dr. Tilton was the commissioner of loans for Delaware as well. And then we talk about a little fun fact and show them Dr. Tilton had an unfortunate issue with his leg, and it had to be amputated, one of them. And he did that here on a surgery slab, which is still in our basement today. And Dr. Tilton stayed awake during this surgery because he wanted to make sure to talk the surgeon who was doing the surgery through how he wanted it done. He was a little bit of a control freak, so he stayed awake during his own surgery.
That is amazing.
And that slab is still here today, downstairs.
So he had so many experiences during his lifetime, led the way in so many things. Mm-hmm. Now, was it Victor DuPont that was kind of like, okay, we really need to hang on to this piece of history, or has it been a collective recognition over time of people who say, this guy, we really need to preserve what he was about and what he did?
I think it's gone through stages. Certainly Mr. DuPont, being a family of such importance to Delaware, recognized all of the accomplishments that Dr. Tilton had done over the years, and the Medical Society of Delaware really helped keep that alive as well. There is a bust, the same bust that we have here in the mansion, that is present down at the Medical Society, and there's an annual Tilton Award for Medical Achievement that happens each year, so they've really helped to keep his history alive. I think for a few years, when you're part of a dining club, as this had become, maybe the club supersedes in importance, and history can often be forgotten for a little while, so it comes in waves. And right now, we're on a resurgence of Dr. Tilton and all of the amazing things that he did.
There's certainly a lot to share, and we're going to talk more with Stacy at Tilton Mansion right after this.
This is Mark Fields of the Grand Opera House, and we're in the spotlight with 302.
Welcome back. We're at Tilton Mansion talking about the history, James Tilton, of course. And now we're going to kind of shift gears from the tours that we just talked about into other events. I'm joined by Stacy Inglis to talk a little bit about the events. Now, in March, it's a big month for you guys.
It is a big month for us, yes. On March 6th, we have our 4th annual International Women's Day luncheon. Mm-hmm. This year we're focusing on education and groundbreaking women. This will be the 4th of the lunches that we did. When we talked earlier about the two clubs coming together, mm-hmm. women weren't allowed in this club until 1986. There were
that's
no
surprising.
female. I know, I graduated high school in 84, so 86 seems a little crazy. Yeah. But maybe to bring it full circle, we honored the very first woman member of the University and West Club, Sally Hawkins. And the second year, we honored our Lieutenant Governor, Bethany Hall Long. Mm-hmm. We thought that honoring a female lieutenant governor in the former home of a male lieutenant governor would help to bring history full circle.
Sure.
And then the third year, we honored Kathleen Jennings, our Attorney General of Delaware. So we kind of covered radio, which Sally Hawkins owned. We covered politics with Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long. We covered the law with the Attorney General, Kathleen Jennings. Mm-hmm. And then this year, we're doing Groundbreaking Women of Education. Mm-hmm. There are 4 presidents of Delaware colleges and universities, which I thought was amazing when we did a little research to try to narrow down who we'd be honoring this year. Dr. Laverne Harmon of Wilmington University is the first president of that university, as well as the first African-American female president of any university or college in Delaware. So that's very impressive. And then Dr. Colleen Keith is the president of Goldie Beacom College. And Dr. Mishu is the president, soon to be retiring, but still president of Delaware State University and the first president. And Jean Dahlgren is the president of Delaware College of Art and Design as well. And all 4 of the women are the first female presidents of their particular universities or colleges.
Now, this is something that anybody could attend if they wanted to?
Yes, anyone can attend. We have sold out the last 2 years very quickly, and it's nice to outgrow something that was created here in the mansion.
Yeah, because you said it started very small.
It did. It started as a luncheon for Sally, and we had about 90 people, and it's grown to 200, which is really the capacity of our ballroom, maybe slightly over the capacity of our ballroom.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Now, you have another event later in the month.
We do. March 29th, we have our second annual bridal show or bridal experience. We are a venue for weddings. Some of the photographs, the wedding photography is just stunning here between the staircases, the outside, the photos that we get back from photographers who come here to do events is really beautiful. So people really enjoy getting married here at the Tilton Mansion.
And you're expanding, I guess, the places where you can get married, right? The carriage house, you're working on that?
Yes, 2/3 of our carriage house have been renovated. We had 3 ceremonies in it this past fall. So the carriage house that was built in 1902, we were able to keep all of the original wood, the original pocket doors. We didn't want to restore it too much because we didn't want to take away from its charm or its originality or any of its history, but we did have 3 ceremonies in there so far this year. And the third side should be completed by spring of 2020.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of brides out there that have their eyes on.
They do. They absolutely do.
And while you can, rent out the venue, you don't have to be a member to do that, right?
You do not. You have to be. We're private dining, so you're a member to dine and to do the different events that we have that are members only. But if you are looking to get married, or if you're doing a meeting, or having an anniversary party, or a bridal shower, or something like that, then many rooms in our mansion would be open to you, even if you are not a member of the club.
So talk to me a little bit about membership. Are there different levels? What comes with membership?
Yes, we have resident member, we have non-resident. So if you live 40 miles from the club, it's a little bit discounted rate. We also have a nonprofit membership level, and we have a corporate membership. So the more people from your company that join, then that's also a discounted and scaled membership rate as well. And we do have over 250 reciprocal clubs. So if you're a member of University and Whist Club and you wanted to go to Europe for an event, you might be able to pop into the St. James Club in London for lunch with a letter of introduction from us, since we have that relationship with them. And that's definitely something that our members who travel for business or for personal really enjoy, being able to have access to all the different private clubs around the globe just because they're a member here.
Sure, it's kind of nice to kind of check things out off the list here. So do you find that some members get the list and they go through and they try to hit them all? Has this happened?
I don't think everybody's hit them all, but I know that some people do maybe change their vacation destination just a little bit to make sure that it's in one of the cities. We had one of our members, Mr. Walsh, who went to Scotland and hit 2 of them. They call and check and see where where the reciprocal clubs are, and then maybe change it a little
so that they can check it
clubs.
off. Excellent. So there are going to be people who are going to watch this and they're going to go, I would like to be a member, or I would like to go to International Women's Day, or, take that tour. Where do they go to get the information they need on all of these things?
Anything that we have going on here that's open to non-members is on our Events at the Whist Facebook page. That's how we decipher, right? And then we have the University and Whist Club Facebook page, which is really more member events. So I would suggest that people either go to Events at the Whist on Facebook, or that they give us a call. You can Google us and our contact information's in there.
Well, Stacy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
it was
you very
really
much.
educational. We really enjoyed it. And we'll be right back. That'll do it for this episode of The 302. For more information on activities at Tilton Mansion, all you have to do is check out their Facebook page. We leave you now with a beauty shot via drone of Tilton Tower. Until next time, we'll see you on The 302.